because once I start sharing my screen, I won't see any more then, and then I won't see, I might turn off my own camera then at that stage as well. So listen, everybody, hello and welcome to our new visitors from area. You come all the way. I'm not sure where you are, but listen, nice to see you here, and we'll get to see you on site. So guys, I'm Trish O'Driscoll, and I'm going to run through the whole environment, health and safety. Now, a lot of it is geared towards when you're on site, but I know I'm conscious some of you may be working off site, but we'll figure it out. And hopefully when you do come on site, we get to meet you and stuff as well. So I'm going to kind of try, it's a whistle stop through the whole thing, and I'm going to try and cover everything to do with environment, health and safety, but primarily what you need to know to keep you safe in the first couple of days. Things like the alarms, reporting accidents, all the stuff then you'll get to know more as you start. So I'm going to start sharing there. So I'll turn off myself. I'll start sharing my screen. And let me bring this one up and put it into PowerPoint. All right then, because when I'm in presentation, I can't see anymore. So this is what we're going to cover. So everything to do with environment, health and safety. So you'll hear it referred to as EH&S, talk to EH&S. And I'm going to cover a little bit on energy as well, because it does kind of fall into the whole thing. So I suppose it's really about keeping you safe. And see that green line down here? Not only that, it's all about protecting our planet, our people and our property. So we're all about, like, while keeping you safe as our employees, our property needs to be safe for you, and we need to do something for the planet at the same time. So I'm not going to ask you this, because if I was there in the room with you, I would, but have a think and see, what am I going to cover? Like, I suppose, see, do you think that was it at the end? So it's, what do you think EH&S is all about? So don't get a shock now when I show you this one, but this is what I want to cover today. So it seems a lot, but if I just do this bit first, a lot of this first bit is what you need to know to start off with. The rest you will start to figure out as you come on site. A lot of the stuff on the right hand side will be as you come on site, what you'll learn then. All right then. So I suppose let me run through it. I need to tell you who we are. The important thing is I need to tell you about the emergency response procedure, because that's kind of different today now. So it means if the alarms goes off, what do you need to do? Need to tell you all about accident, incident, near miss reporting. So it's really important if anything happens to you. Need to touch on safety legislation, safety statement, risk assessment. Then there are two policies I need to tell you about, EH&S and energy. Then I want to tell you what Boston Scientific is doing, what's their part in helping the environment and energy. And then all the stuff on the right here is for when you get on site: chemical handling, personal protective equipment, blade safety, ergonomics, pregnant employees, and then of course COVID is our new one in the middle of it all, and then site rules and policies. And I will be sending you a quiz at the end. We normally used to do it at the end of the session, but I'll send it out to you. So this is us, very small department. Tony O'Sullivan is the EH&S manager. There's me in the middle there. And Orla Lee is the EHS coordinator who works part-time with us and part-time in HR. So I've got a bit of a dual role. I'm a senior occupational health and safety specialist. So what I end up doing is half my time is occupational health nursing, and the other half is health and safety. So when it comes to the nursing, occupational health nursing, it's really to do with if you're injured on site, if you're off sick with let's say a back problem, I need to make sure that when you come back, are you okay? Is the area working okay? So that kind of stuff is where you'll see me a lot on. But to be honest, you'll see me on most stuff. And the same with Orla. You'll meet Orla a lot when it comes to doing risk assessments, and I'll explain them in a moment. Okay, so this is the important bit. I want to tell you about what happens. I'll bring everything up there now, because so that we'll have them all. What happens when the alarm goes off? So there you are tomorrow. I know some of you are coming on site at some stage and you hear the alarm going and you'll be going, what the heck, what am I meant to do? So for starters, when you're new, follow everybody else. But when you're there after a week, what you do is you listen for the instructions, because it is going to tell you. It's going to say, attention, attention. And there's two announcements it's going to be. It's going to say, we're investigating a situation, or it's going to say, please leave the site by the nearest safe exit. So just listen out for this, the announcement, what it's going to tell you. When the first announcement comes, when it says investigating a situation, our emergency response team, we have one on site, Their job is to go to the fire panel down at security and figure out where the alarm has gone off. The first person to arrive will figure out, the second person picks up a radio and legs it off down to wherever it is, and radios back a message to tell the guy at the panel that we need a fire brigade, it's a false alarm, silence the alarm. So they have 4 minutes to do that. And if within that 4 minutes they don't get it done, we go into full evacuation, where the site gets emptied. And that's where you will hear the sign, the announcement that says, please leave the site by the nearest safe exit. And you do that. You literally down tools, drop everything, leave all your gear on, and go out by the nearest exit. So your job when you go on site will be to look for that fire exit sign that's down there, that green one at the bottom. And when you go out, you're going to go to the muster points, and I'll show you those in a minute, and then you go to your assembly. And important is you assemble with your team. And the reason we say that is because certain areas may get clearance before other areas, and you just wait there until you're here. Now, obviously, we're in the middle of COVID, and it's real important you're going to maintain the 2-meter distancing. So real important, know where your emergency exits are. So the first job I need you to do. So see this other group I've up here, we have what's called evacuation marshals. So I often refer to them endearingly as shepherds herd their sheep, because what they're going to do is make sure you are all gone out. So they are the last people to leave. They will walk their areas. We have the site split into 21 zones. They will walk each zone. There's 2 to 3 on each shift. They will walk each zone and they will clear it. They'll make sure everyone has gone out, and they will report to the evacuation coordinator to let them know zone 5 is clear, zone 10 is clear, all the way until we get them all clear. And it's at that point we can stand down. You wait until we have the building clearance checks and you stand down. Now, of course, if you discover a fire, so as I said, when you're new, I wouldn't expect you to do this, but as time goes on, you will. You tell somebody. If you can't find the break glass unit, you tell somebody. But once you start getting familiar, you break the break glass unit. Okay, so then we want you to go outside. So this is what the muster points are. So when you come on site, you will see these green poles. And what they do is check you out of the building. So it's like we have a dual system. We have the evacuation marshals who are going to clear the building, but we now also is making sure everyone is accounted for by swiping out. So when you come on site, you're going to come through the turnstiles, which checks you into the building. Nothing to do with Cronus or checking you to do with your time and all that. The turnstile checks you into the building. So now we have to check you out in the event of an emergency. So you go to the green pole and you just hold your card against that and it checks you out of the building. So we have 4 locations as you make your way out. So I'm assuming none of you have been on site just yet. So you will see them at the entrance to the car parks. There's 3 car parks. There's, when you drive in from Model Farm Road, there's one on your left. Then we have what's called the middle car park, and then we have the lower car park, which is way down there. So the muster points are on the small car park and the middle car park, and you swipe your badge and continue to your assembly points. Now these are your assembly points. So it's reasonably easy to figure it out because we only have 3 of them. And to be honest, only 2 of them are going to be applicable at the moment. So, okay, but for the 4 of you, or the number of you I know from Varian, actually for now, you probably will go to the visitor one, even though I know you're here a couple of weeks. So normally, so let's put it this way. All production people go to A, anyone working in production. All warehouse and non-production. So if you're in quality engineering, if I had a bigger department, EH&S, finance, they all go to B, assembly point B, which is in the middle car park. A is in the little car park. And then H is for visitors, contractors. Because of COVID, we have so few visitors and contractors these days that it's hard. But actually, guys, you do go to H, because like all our cleaning staff, all our catering staff would assemble at point H. And that's literally, you can't miss it. It's just right at the edge there. Now, the big thing to remember is, while at your assembly point, you have to try and maintain the 2 meter. It's hard, but you do. And we do encourage it. We are now asking everybody to wear masks out there while assembling. Mask wearing is mandatory on site, but we will, during evacuation, we will ask you to wear them as well. All right, then. So that's what the signs look like. This is the little car park there now. You see, so H is up here at the edge, and A is there, like it's up on the pole, but you can literally stand and try and keep apart. Okay, so that's enough about the emergency. So now I want to tell you about if anything happens to you. So if you have an accident or you observe a dangerous event or a near miss, report it to your team leader, supervisor immediately. It's really, really important you report it straight away. Don't think, Asha, that's okay. I won't worry about that. I'll go, it'll be gone. It's nothing. Please report everything. And the reason we want everything reported is because we investigate everything. And even a near miss, if you see it's something that looks like, oh my God, somebody could trip over that, say, wet floor, a trailing cable, report it. Because when we investigate it, we identify what the root cause is. We find out why it happened in the first place. And by doing that, we can put in place the proper corrective action so that it doesn't happen again, because that's what we want to do. We want to make sure it never happens again. Obviously, the injured person will always be treated by the first aider. So we have over 40 occupational trained first aiders on site. So they're trained specifically for the workplace. They're no point going to them if something happens to you outside of work, if you cut yourself at home or if you're looking for Panadol, because that's not what they're covered for. It's really, they're your first port of call when you're injured at work. And then if it's something small, they'll put a band-aid on. If it's not, they will come to me and then I will work with them. And our priority is make sure that if you're injured, you're treated properly. All accident forms are available on Coin, but I wouldn't worry about that for now. Ask your manager, team leader about it, let's say. Okay, so then you'll say all this stuff happens. We need to learn from it. Remember I said we're going to identify the root cause and put corrective actions in place. And we need to make sure that it won't happen again. But by doing that, we have to make sure we tell every other area. So we do up what's called these injury alerts or near miss alerts. You'll see them there on the right hand side. And they're shared with every department. And it's either at their morning meetings, morning huddles, whatever. It has no confidential information on it. It's only going to say what happened, where it happened, what the root cause was, what the corrective action was. And that's where we learn from what's happened in the past. All right then. So now, I want to tell you a bit about legislation. Not an awful lot because I don't want to bore the hell out of you, but it's important you know it exists because that's what drives, and let's keep an eye on the time now too, that's what drives us from an environment, health and safety aspect. So there's one big bit of legislation called the Act, the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act. And think of this as like an umbrella, because coming out of the umbrella, out of each little prong, there's different regulations and codes of practice. And the big broad one is general application regulations. It covers everything: machinery, manual handling, pregnant employees, all of it in there. And then the other big one is chemical agents. And while you might say we work in a medical device company, we do have chemicals, and it's very important you look after yourself with them. So that's what, just know it exists. But within that, then we all have duties. So the employer has a certain lot of stuff it has to do, and it's the legislation says so. And I suppose go back a step. All these originate in the EU, and then each country have to put them into practice, put it into legislation. They start as a directive and then they're put into law, and it's the Health and Safety Authority are responsible. So within that, every employer has duties. So they have duties to provide a place safe for work, safe access egress, meaning way in and out, safe plant and machinery, must provide information, training and supervision. So like today in your ongoing training you get, must provide personal protective equipment. That's things like hearing protection, safety shoes if you're in the warehouse, must have adequate emergency plans. So like what I just told you about, how making sure we can get you out of the building, must provide for the safe use of chemicals, and must have welfare facilities, adequate welfare facilities for the number of people we have. And then we as employees, we have our bit to do. So we must take reasonable care. We must cooperate with our employer. So as in if there's like instructions we need to follow, SUIs they're called, we need to follow them. If there's procedures we need to follow, if we're given PPE, we must wear it. Real important, we must report accident incidents and any defects in equipment, and purely so that we can investigate and make sure it doesn't happen again. And then not to intentionally or recklessly interfere with any equipment or procedures. So that's what employees, we all have to do. And then coming out of that legislation is what's called the safety statement and risk assessment. So if you go to your little corner shop, anywhere that there's more than 2 people, they have to have a safety statement. And what a safety statement is it's a high-level document that defines, it tells you how you're going to keep people safe on site, what our safety systems are. So it'll list out all the things that could be harmful. like machinery, moving parts, manual handling, chemicals, and then it'll put in place, well, what are you doing about it? And risk assessments are the core of all that. So a risk assessment is where you look at something and say, okay, how can that harm me? What can I put in place to make sure it doesn't harm somebody? And what do I need to do to make sure it stays that way? So a simple way of describing a risk assessment is if any of us had been gone driving in our car to work today, because I'm working from home as well today, is that when we get in our car, the first thing you do is you put your seatbelt on because it's legislation. But the second thing you do, which is the risk assessment part, is before you move your car, you look to your left and your right and you make sure there's nobody coming. And then if there's no one coming, you proceed. So it's like doing a little mini risk assessment. So there's a big chunk of work, and you'll meet Orla while she's doing all of those. Now, I'm not going to read through these two, but these are our policies. So it is important you know they exist. So there's an environment, health and safety one on the left and an energy one on the right. And if you went to any Boston Scientific site across the globe, you will find these two policies. Because when it comes to energy and environment, health and safety, we all speak the same language because we're all about, do you remember the main statement I said there earlier, the green one? Protecting our planet, people and property, and all things Boston Scientific. So at a very high level, if I was to tell you what they're about, the environment, health and safety one is all about continuously improving, investigating accidents to make sure we put stuff in place so it won't happen again. It's all about complying with legislation and the various standards that are applicable. And that's why I told you about the safety legislation. It's about establishing objectives and targets. All very well to say you're going to do all those wonderful things, but unless you have a guiding list and unless you're going to measure yourself, it won't happen. So that's why we have objectives, targets. It's about providing adequate resources and training. And it's about all of us taking responsibility for ourselves when it comes to protecting our planet, people and property. And then the energy one is pretty much the same, except obviously carbon neutrality is a big one in there. Now it's a big ask, and even before, Boston Scientific aim to be carbon neutral by 2030. And it's very, you'll hear it in the media at the moment, and I suppose COVID has really shown a wobbly in the middle of it, but they're aiming to get there to be carbon neutral. And the other different ones in there from the energy perspective would be like the fourth one down, continual energy and performance improvements. So that means making sure the equipment we use isn't putting a huge drain on what we have our supply. And then making sure when we're buying new equipment that it's adequate, that all of you have seen that graph at the back of an electrical, something that tells you what rating it is. So it's all around that. So if I was to try and explain the policies better, remember I keep focusing on that statement because that's what it's all about. It's I protect our planet, people, property, and all things Boston Scientific. So the I, what does the I mean? Every employee and contractor of Boston Scientific. So it's everybody, no matter who sets like across the door. Protect, very big word. How do you protect? So you protect people by providing a safe, healthy, sustainable working environment, by complying with the applicable laws, and by enhancing performance and reducing risks through continual improvement of our environmental safety and energy system. Bit of a mouthful, but really think of it, it's all about the continuous improvement and reducing risks and making sure we stay on top of things. Then the planet, obviously we know what the planet is, the world, but how do you protect it? So it's by preventing pollution and protecting our natural environment locally and globally. So we all need to do our bit to protect our environment locally and globally. And then the people. So again, how do we protect the people? By ensuring the safety and health of our employees, visitors, contractors, and the public. So it's all tie in. As you can see, they all tie in together. So then the property. How are we protecting the property? By reducing physical and natural disaster impacts to ensure the safety of our buildings, equipment, and ground. So what this refers to a lot is the way our weather has changed so much here in Ireland, and we have the storms, and like there's another one coming. So it's like when we have snowstorms or windstorms, we need to make sure the buildings our employees are working in can sustain and can do that. Can they take snow on the roof? With the wind, they're not going to be blown down. And then all things. So all things, when you think of it, the policy is going to affect every task, every job, and every activity that each one of us do is affected by this policy. So just do remember the policy, because auditors love asking, and we do have internal audits, and they just like to know, do you know what it's about? So think of it, the EH&S policy and the energy policy is all about everything we do that's going to protect our planet, people, and property. And we do have display them across the site in different locations. So wherever there's a yellow star is where they are. So easy way to do it, it's in all the gowning rooms. So as you go in the gowning room, you'll see it. It's on the main corridor, and it's also outside the canteen. When I say the main corridor, it's up here by security where you're going to come in tomorrow, and it's also outside the canteen. All right, so enough of that. Now I just want to touch on what Boston Scientific is doing for the environment and energy. So we are certified to an international standard, and it's called 14001. And basically that's what drives us to set objectives and targets. It's a guide. It's like a Bible that tells us how we're going to do our bit for the environment. And by doing that, we set out what environmental aspects are. So what are the big hitters? What are the things that's going to affect the environment? And what are we as a company going to do about it? That's what's written in the objectives and targets. And then we write a report every year, which tells and that's available on our internet page, our home one, but that tells you exactly how much energy we used, how much waste we sent off site, what we recycled, all of that kind of stuff. So it's good to know. Now, the other important part, and I have it in red because it's really important, we're not, so all of you might have heard of the Environmental Protection Agency. So we do not have a license from them, but we have a license from Cork City Council, which permits the release of aqueous effluent. So if any of you have worked in pharmaceutical plants, we have a very small wastewater treatment plant. So basically we have to be very mindful of what we pour down the sink. In some big pharmaceutical companies, you can pour what you like down the sink and it all goes to the wastewater treatment plant and it's treated and it won't get into the environment. Whereas we don't, and we have a license and a permit that allows us to put so much down there. So breach of that could lead to suspension of our business. So what that means for us and what that means for any of you going into the clean room is you never pour chemicals down the drain, never ever. They go into different containers, and I'll cover that with you afterwards. So then when it comes to energy, same thing, an international standard, certified 50001. Exact same thing. It's like a Bible that tells us how are we going to make sure we protect the environment. Instead of aspects, they're called energy risks and opportunities. And it's the same idea. You're continuously trying to improve your energy consumption, and you're trying to buy new equipment that's not going to put a big drain on it. And then again, there's an energy manual and there's a report. Obviously, carbon neutral, then as I said, is the big thing. This is the big hitter we want to go with for this year. Now, I won't get in too much into it because obviously it's gone like scope 1 and 2 there is what we can only work on. Your travel has gone out the door now, says you at this stage. But this explains it in a short, easy one. And like obviously the fact we're going to have to do it at home as well. So it's all about cut our energy use. Turn off lights when you leave the room. Turn off equipment that you're not using. Convert to renewables. So make sure we're getting our sources of power from a renewable, like an environmentally friendly one, and then compensate. So gain credits, unavoidable CO2 emissions. And I suppose the big thing is that statement down at the bottom. It's just not the right thing. It's not just the right thing to do, it's also the right way to do it. So if we do it the right way all the time, we'll get there. So how can you help when it comes to the whole lot? So from an energy, turn off computers, turn off equipment when not in use, turn off lights when leaving the room. Now, when it comes then to hazardous and non-hazardous waste, so non-hazardous waste is things like paper, plastic, cardboard. So you will see bins across the site for disposing of these. Just dispose of them into the blue for paper, yellow for plastic. And then when it comes to the canteen, we do have a recycling zone. So leave all your food plus your napkin on the plate because the canteen staff look after that. And then use the recycling zone, which is here at the end. And each bin will tell you what goes into what. There's liquids in one. There's like cans in the other. There's plastic in the other, and then there's mixed goes into the last one. So that's the non-hazardous, paper, plastic, that kind of stuff. But then hazardous is the important one because this brings us back to affecting the license we have from the Cork City Council. So never ever pour chemicals down the drain. So you will see these disposable bins across the site. So the red ones, blue ones and white ones. So the red ones are for solid. The white and the blue are for liquid. So into the solid, you'd put things like the alcohol wipes you'll use to clean down your station, the empty glue bottles. And into the blue and the white, you put all the liquids. They go in there. And we have a contract with a waste contract company, and Daniel's on site 3 days a week, and he comes and takes away all these containers. So your job is just make sure pour it in there rather than down the drain. Okay, and the other thing I suppose is like we do try and encourage people to cycle to work or walk to work. And that's just the other side of it. And if you have any suggestions, use the CI process. That'll all be explained to you when you get to your work areas. Some of the good things, I'll only just touch on it really. We do have bees on site. But they'll be quite these days. I've not heard anything. They're all asleep still, I imagine. They hibernate for the winter. We have started an eco garden, and we're trying to put things like plants that'll help the bees, and plus build furniture out of recyclable pallets. But I won't get into too much detail on this now, because you're going to hear about the green team, and they'll be looking for volunteers, and we're going to try and work with the community a little bit this year. So if you're interested, just sign up, just come along to it. And then from the energy, remember I was saying to you, we're getting from renewable sources. Electric Ireland are supplying all our electricity, and we do have a CHP plant on site, which is provides 50% of our electrical and thermal load. Okay then. No, so I just want to, so I'm going to do one, okay. I'm going to do one thing here now for a moment, because I want to turn my camera back on, and I want to show you something. So I'm now going to talk to you about chemicals. So some of you will be doing this on site when you're handling it. But I suppose the thing I want is, and I'm going to run through the slide. So the big thing I want you to do is, I have a bottle of fairy washing up liquid here. I want you to get used to looking at the labels on your chemicals. It's a bit hard to see it now, but it's just for doing washing the dishes, let's say. But every chemical has to have a label. So even fairy washing up liquid has a label. But at the back, do you see that hazard? That little pictogram.
Patricia, we can't really see it that well.
I know it's hard, isn't it? I know, and I'm trying to figure. No, do you see? All I want you to see. Do you see that explanation mark? Yeah, that's all I want you to look at. And the same here, look. Do you see that explanation mark? And then do you see the flammable sign?
Yeah.
So this is a hand sanitizer. This is fairy washing up liquid that you do your dishes with. So can you imagine the two of these have these hazard symbols on them? So can you imagine what chemicals like IPA, isopropyl alcohol, like glue? So all I want you to do is get into the habit of looking at them. And the reason I show you these is because you all have these at home. Everybody has them under your sink at home. So the important thing is start looking, reading what you're using. Read the labels on them. So that's a plain, honest to God hand sanitizer. But if you look at the back, that little explanation mark is telling you it's an irritant. So if you use too much of it, it's going to cause you an irritant. So if you're all day long rubbing your hands in it. And then do you see the other sign? That's it's like a fire. It's flammable. So that's telling you that it's going to go on fire. Whereas the fairy up liquid just has the pictogram sign on it. So I'll go back there now and I'll go back to the slides, and I'll show you what we'll run through what they are. So I suppose what I really wanted to do was to highlight that how important it is. So before you handle any chemical, you should read what's called the safety data sheet. That tells you everything about that chemical. Follow the guidance in the safety data sheet, because it's going to tell you how to handle, store and dispose of it. Make sure all containers are labeled. And the reason I say that is because the isopropyl alcohol that we clean down workstations with comes in a 5-litre container, and it's poured out into a smaller container. And make sure there's a label on that. Very important, report all spillages to your supervisor manager, because we get the emergency response team to clean it up. First thing you do is figure out where the spill kit is when you go to your work areas in case you need it. And this one is the most important of all. If you remember nothing, remember the two things I've told you. Look at the labels, and if you're splashed with a chemical, make sure you wash it for 10-15 minutes and then report it. So the first thing you do when you're splashed with a chemical, go straight for water. find the sink, run it under the sink. If you have to go out to the gowning room, if that's the only sink you know, you'd be out there in 2 minutes and run it under the cold water and then get somebody to get a first aider. So the other things, oh yeah, so safety data sheets then are available for every chemical we have on site, they're available. And you see, that's the safety data sheet up in the corner. And you can see the 3 little pictograms. So that's what I was trying to show you, is that look at your chemical that you're handling and look for that label on it. And you'll see either that little irritant, they nearly all have that irritant sign. And the one in the middle is telling you it'll harm the environment. And the other one is telling you it's serious, it could cause some body harm to you. So know about them. Make sure you wear the appropriate PPE when you're handling chemicals. If any of you are introducing new chemicals, I'm not quite sure. I know there's some of you going to other areas. We have what's called a chemical introduction form needs to be filled in, but we have to sign it. Tony and myself sign that before it's brought in. And then just a reminder, waste chemicals must be disposed of as hazardous waste, so never pour it down the sink. So a bit of a whistle stop on chemicals, because you'll find out more when you get to your areas. And then look, the 3 bends again, remember, the red for the solid, the blue and the white for the liquid. So this is our homepage, and somebody will show you this, or if they won't, when you come on site, just put in coin and it'll bring you there. And you see here what I've circled is what's called ChemDoc safety sheets, data sheets. That'll bring you straight to the software program that we use to store all our safety data sheets. And if you can see down here at the end, I had typed in isopropyl, and like IPA we use all the time for stuff. And you'll see along here, you'll see a PDF version of the safety data sheet. You'll see the little pictograms that at a glance tells you it's flammable because of the flame sign and it's an irritant. And if you clicked on the PDF, it brings you straight to the safety data sheet. So just that's where, so to know where you to find them. Okay, so I better keep an eye on the time. So now PPE. Whistle stop on this again, because you'll find out more when you get there. So PPE is used to obviously protect you against certain hazards. So it could be for noise, which would be hearing protection. Chemicals will be gloves and glasses. Falling objects would be like foot protection, particularly the warehouse. Hot material surfaces will be gloves, and flying objects will be glasses. So if you need to wear them, please make sure you wear them. So your work instructions will tell you all about that. And any questions, you talk to your team leader on it. And I suppose the important one to remember here is we make a lot of products, let's say, chemicals, catheters, coils, various. And remember, all of those products we make will be used in could be somebody we know down the road at some stage. So PPE is also used to protect the product, because we have to make sure that product is safe and for whoever it's going to be used on. Okay, so now I'm going to touch on blades. I get a little obsessed with blades sometimes because we do use a lot of blades, and we tend to go through cycles where we have blade cuts and we need to remind people. So just think of it as handle all blades with caution. And do you know why? Because the blade is sharp enough. So to avoid cuts, you need to stay sharp with that blade, because it already is. So all the blades come like this. There's a sharp edge and there's a part you hold. And there's 4 places for a blade. Just remember that. They all come in that little dispenser, and you press that blue button and a blade pops up. You will either have it in your hand, you're working on it, or you park it on the magnet out the back, or you dispose of it in the sharps bin. So just make sure. And plus, some of the stations will be marked blade-free stations. So people tend to use a blade for opening pouches when it's a scissors. So if there's a sign up there saying no blades, don't use blades there. All right then, so now a little bit on ergonomics. Now I'm going to send you a little booklet that has more about ergonomics in it, and it has these stretching guides in it as well. But ergonomics is all about designing equipment and work arrangements to protect you. And if you do it, so think of it, none of us are the same height. We could range from 5 foot to 6 foot. So a workstation needs to be adjustable. Chair needs to be adjustable. Microscopes need to be adjustable. So ergonomics is all about setting up and designing the work arrangements so that we ease the load on the body. So you have all these things that are adjustable. So you'll find out more of that when you get to your areas as well. The one exercise I harp on, we used to be really good pre-COVID of each area did stretching exercises, and you will see these posters. And there's one I do remind people that just stretch out your eyes. And there's one we might do at the end if we have time. So think of it, the eye one is don't spend all day staring at your computer or staring at through your microscope or staring, doing inspection. Look into the distance and look back, because when you look in the distance, you're stretching out your eye muscles. So look in the distance and look back again, and that'll what help you. So if nothing else, remember that one, stretch out the eyes. Okay, then this is the little book here that I'm going to send to you as well when we're done, say. Okay, so I'm only going to touch on this. This is all to do with what's called ROB, responsibility, ownership, behavior, continuous improvement. You're going to see these boards when you get to your area. I'm not going to harp on it now because somebody within the area will explain to you. But here I do want to remind you, we have what's called your safety, your journey, our journey, your safety. I always have to remember it. And it's our safety culture. So we introduced these last year. We don't want people walking and using their phone at the one time, because you're going to walk into somebody. So we now have a one-way system on site anyway because of COVID. But the last thing you need is somebody stops dead in front of you looking at their phone if they don't step in. So we want people to step into these signs or step to the side to avoid all of that. And the other one I just want to remind you up here is if you do remember I said about near misses earlier, if you do see wet floors in the gowning room, pop up this little hazard sign because somebody else may not see it and they may fall on it. And then this wee boy here with the light over his head is all to do with new ideas, and you're going to find that out when you get to your areas. Okay, so we're in bad weather, let's say. So it's important that we're heading, and we're heading into a bit of a, apparently beast from the east, I think, is coming. So we do want to remind you when we're in the winter weather, please take care when walking or cycling around the site because the roadways can get quite icy. So stay on the designated walkways and pedestrian crossings. And the reason we say that is, so this is like the footpath, this is the designated walkway crossing here, pedestrian crossing. And just up from that, you can see a speed ramp. So when it's icy, security keep an eye on the temperature and they will salt the footpaths at the pedestrian crossing, but they're not going to salt the speed bumps. And they're made from toughened plastic and they can become quite slippy. So avoid walking them and please take your time when the weather is bad. I'm sure you've all heard about like walk like a penguin. I always feel sorry for the poor penguins because they've too crappy little feet and they're expected to travel long distance. But you know what? They stay upright, they manage it. So and when you walk slowly like a penguin, you'll gain traction and you won't fall. So just keep an eye out for that on the roadways and stuff. Okay, so pregnant 5 to 12, is it? Pregnant employees now. I just want to touch base on this. Yes, it's covered in the legislation. Yes, we have risk assessments on everything, but now we have two people we need to worry about. So we need to do an individual risk assessment between the pregnant employee and their manager as soon as possible. Confidentiality is maintained. So as soon as you know, make sure you tell your team leader, supervisor. And the best way I could describe this is when we do the risk assessment, it will identify any risks or hazards. So do you remember I spoke about noise and you get hearing protection? If we have a pregnant mother working in a noisy area, you can't really give the baby hearing protection. So that's why we need to be mindful of that kind of stuff. So just make sure you tell somebody. And it's to protect the safety of the pregnant employee and the unborn child. The manager will send it to me. And if there's any problems, I'll touch base with you. All right, so I'm going to launch into something about COVID now, and you probably have sick of this and heard of it, but you're all new. Some of you are coming to the site, some of you may not, but you will be at some stage. So it'll look different. Well, obviously, we have a lot of systems in place that are to protect everybody. So what you'll find is we'll have a hand sanitizer at the entrance. So we need everybody to use that as you come and go. We have temperature screening on the entry to the site, just at the turnstiles. It's a thermal scanner. If your temperature is raised, if it's above 38, you will be asked to go back out through the side door and security will ask you to wait for 15 minutes and then you come back in again. If it's raised a second time, you'll be asked to go home and to contact your doctor. We do have 2-meter social distancing practicing right across the side. So we spend our time spending 2 meters away. We have a one-way system on the corridor. So you walk on the left at all times. We have a one-way system in the bathrooms. You go in one door, out the other door. So just watch out for the signs for that. Then in the clean room and other stuff we have Perspex screens where necessary between the different workstations. So if we can't keep the stations 2 meters apart, we have this toughened perspex that comes down below the breathing zone so as to make sure you're protected from everybody else. And as I said, mask wearing is now mandatory as well. The canteen is quite different to what it would have been in old days. We have staggered break times, so you will be told what your time to go to the canteen is. And the reason also for the staggered break times is we need to keep the footfall in the gowning rooms down at any one time. So you will find all the gowning rooms are marked now as well. So when you go in and when any of you are coming on site, when you go in, you will see they're numbered. You go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to get in, say. Going back to the canteen, reduced numbers, designated seating. I don't mean you book your seat. It means that the areas where you can sit are marked clearly. Remote working. Some of you may end up working from home. Like I spend kind of myself and my boss alternate. So we work from home, say every other day, let's say. And then, as I said earlier, visitor restriction is really limited to the site. So people have to get approval before coming on site. And then I suppose the other ones is wearing of masks are now mandatory. So we ask of everybody, and the important part is you keep the mask over your nose. It takes a bit of time. It takes a little time if you wear glasses. You need to make sure that the mask fits underneath them, or else your glasses get fogged up. But it's manageable. You get used to it. You must keep a record of your contacts while at work, and your close contacts are people who are within 2 meters for more than 15 minutes. And the reason we ask that is if you are being sent for a test, and if your test turns out to be positive, the HSE, or Health Service Executive, will contact you and will ask for a list of the people that you were within 2 meters for more than 15 minutes. So by asking people to be mindful, we're encouraging people to stay apart as much as possible. If you are going for a test, you must tell your manager, team leader. So if you discover you wake up in the morning and you feel you're unwell, don't come to work. Stay at home and contact your doctor. But please ring your supervisor manager. If thereafter you wait for your doctor to call you back and he decides to send for your test, please tell your manager, because what we do on site is we take an extra step to protect everybody. We do our own close contact screening. So while we have people waiting for a test, if we identify close contacts, we send those people home until the person's result comes back. So just make sure you tell people. If you have a test and it's negative, you must be 48 hours symptom-free before returning to work. That's all from the HSE. If you have a positive test, you will so be given all the guidelines from the HSE. They're very good at sending you links, telling you, what to do, and they'll keep checking in with you that you're all right. But and the big thing is you stay in contact with your doctor as well. If you live with somebody who's going for a test, you must also restrict your movement, because someone who's going for a test, you have to assume they're COVID positive until you get the result back. So it means you stay at home until that result comes back. And I suppose the big thing here, remember, is look, wearing the mask over your nose. And these are the 3 fundamentals we keep talking about. 2 meter social distancing, washing your hands using the hand sanitizers, and coughing into your elbow. Okay then. Oh yeah, and hand washing sanitizers are highly recommended, and the sanitizers are available right across the site. No, the other thing then is we can't stop people, because obviously some people have to carpool, but it's not recommended. But if you have to do it, especially now in this weather, because the windows are closed, but if you have to do it and it's unavoidable, we ask people to wear masks while in the car, and one sit in the front and one in the back. And it just depends on the length of your journey. If it's under 15 minutes, you'll probably be okay 2, 3, 4 in the car, but please, everybody wears masks in there. And then our ask of everyone before coming to work every day is, if you have a thermometer, check your temperature if you're feeling sick. So only leave and come for work if you're healthy and well. If you do not, if you're unwell and you're showing any kind of symptoms of COVID, and like all of you will know, the symptoms of COVID are anything that looks like a cold or a flu. It's quite broad, but if you're unsure, call your doctor, because they're the one who knows you and your health best, and they will decide if you need a test or not, let's say. And then let your manager, supervisor know thereafter. All right then, so now I just want to, I have a couple of minutes only, yes, literally. And this is in the pack I'm sending out to you as well. So we've come through a very long year. And we probably have another 6 to 9 months to come through before we're all vaccinated and we're all in a place where we feel comfortable again. So this is important. So in times of uncertainty, focus on what you can control. So this circle, I think, is really good. So within is what you can control, with outside is what you can't control. So the media could scare the shite out of you sometimes because all we're hearing is about all this bad stuff. And yes, it's terribly sad. People are losing their lives and family are losing loved ones. But it can increase your anxiety. So focus on what you can do. Focus on that you can do your bit. Wear your mask, hand washing, social distancing. Real important is try and get a bit of exercise and try and get a bit of healthy eating. And don't be afraid to ask for help. So it's very hard when you're at home all the time. The fridge is very near and it's very easy to go and open the door and say, what'll I have? And then you end up grazing all day long. So eat healthy. As best you can. Obviously, we do need the old treats every now and then. And while it's really hard to get exercise, try and get out for a little bit of air. They're saying now is that if you can get like short 3 10 minutes even even in a week, but they're even recommending it like even 5 minutes, like 3 5 minutes in a day, it will help you fight off COVID if you do end up getting it. So you can have a read of that when I send it to you. It's one of the last pages. And the other is, don't forget, we do have an employee assistance program, and that number is in there as well. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to talk to anybody. These are available for a wide range of stuff, and they're available to everybody. This number is, if you just ring up and say you're working in Boston Scientific, somebody will talk to you and guide you through like relationship issues, bereavement, work-life balance, anxiety, legal or financial matters. So just know that exists there as well. So just a little bit of a refresher now. So remember, see it, say it, report it. Just think of that. So when it comes to looking after yourself, so we're all responsible for our own safety and that of others. Report every incident, accident, near miss. And I told you why, so that we make sure we can figure out why and put in corrective actions. Follow your procedures. Be proactive about safety. You're a great bunch of fresh eyes coming on site now. Don't be afraid to say to us and say to someone in your area, why are you doing it that way? Would you not do it this way? Because it's great to have new thoughts coming in. Use the right tools for the job. And this is where the blade and the scissors. Don't use this blade when you can use the scissors. Make sure you dispose of blades correctly. Manual handling, you're going to be doing that tomorrow. Some of you, whoever is going to be working from home, will be doing it online because obviously because of COVID, everything has changed now as well. But just make sure you lift correctly. And you know what? If in doubt, if you don't think you can lift it, don't do it. Ask for help. Practice good housekeeping. So don't block things like the fire extinguisher or emergency exits. Tempting to park your trolley there sometimes, but avoid it. And like I suppose, really be proactive about safety. It's in your hands. Now, I hate doing site rules and policy, but I'll just do a little bit. Actually, we're doing good on time. Okay, so no medication is allowed into the production areas. So if you do have an underlying condition and you're on prescription medication that you have to take regularly, please tell somebody. So a typical example is that if you have epilepsy or if you're a diabetic, please tell your team leader, manager, because if in the event something happens to you, they'll know. And if you're disappearing a lot to take medication, just tell them and they'll know, they'll understand. There's only one area you can smoke on site. We have a smoking area halfway down the corridor. And again, you need to maintain your 2-meter social distancing out there. And it's really important you use the hand sanitizers before you come back in, before you go out. They're at the door there because obviously your hand is going to be near your mouth a lot when you're smoking. No chewing gum is allowed on site. Remember, please dispose of chemicals in the correct bins. The red one for solids, the blue and white for liquids, or else we could be in breach of our license, and use the other recycled bins across the site for the paper and plastic and in the canteen. And there could be disciplinary procedures if you don't wear the PPE you're supposed to, or if you use blades at blade-free stations. Okay, I'm not going to go through this now because these are the questions. Well, I have a couple of minutes. I'll flick through it. This is the quiz that I'm going to send all of you a link to, and I need you to do it. All the answers are within what I'm sending you. So just have a look at that. So as a refresher, who's responsible for the safety of the employees within Boston Scientific? We all are, everybody. Where would you find the policies, the EH&S policy and the energy policy? Outside the canteen and in the gowning rooms. When the alarm sounds, what should you do? So you hear the alarm going off, you listen for the sound and you listen for the instruction and exit the building by the nearest safe exit. The environmental management system in Boston Scientific conforms to which standard? 14001. You can help protect the environment by doing what? What do you do? So dispose of non-hazardous waste in the correct bins, paper, plastic, turn off lights, computers, photocopiers when not required, and ensure waste chemicals are disposed of as hazardous waste in the red bin, the blue bin, the white bin. The energy management system conforms to which standard? 50001. Can you be asked by an auditor about the policies? Yes, they love to. So just remember, it's all about every job, every task we do is going to affect the people, the planet, and the property. What must you do if an accident or near miss occurs? Report it immediately. Don't wait till the next day, report it immediately. And again, with energy, how can you help? Turning off lights, ask if product equipment can be switched off when not in use, and turning off your computers. And a safety data sheet must be read before handling chemical? Yes, definitely. Okay then, so that is that. So let me get out of there. Go back to here, and I'll stop sharing for a minute. And my camera's back on. And I think we have a couple of minutes left. So I know some of you will be on site, some of you may not. Just it'll be a bit confusing to start with. So you're kind of going, oh dear God. So walk on the left all the time, like down the left hand side, up the left. Watch out for the signs in the toilets, in one door, out the other. Use the hand sanitizers as you go. You'll see it everywhere coming in. When you're coming through the turnstiles, just keep walking. It'll automatically take your temperature. But if it alarms, just come around back again, I suppose, And you know what, guys? Enjoy it while you're here. Our new visitors and all of you coming new, enjoy your time working there, because, it's a great place to work, Boston Scientific is, but it is a hard time we're in. There's no doubts about it. COVID has shown wobblies on everything. It's taken away a lot of this face-to-face, and it is quite stressful. Like, you may now be coming from a place where you're now having to work with 1,200 people, and you're kind of going, oh my God, all these people are freaking me out. I don't want to be near them. But there's so many systems on site. We actually have been planning for this since January last year. The minute we heard of the first case in China, we started our crisis management team and we started planning. So I suppose one small exercise, two things I want you to do. We tend to hold our shoulders. Every now and then, I want you all to every now and then remember to drop your shoulders down. Just drop them down, whatever you're doing when you're working. And the other one, when you're trying to learn everything new, the other thing I want you all to try and remember to do is don't forget to breathe, because we tend to hold our breath. So the easiest way is, when you're kind of going, oh my God, I must do this and I can't do that. Take a breath in for 4 and leave it out for 6. So when you do that, when you're getting overwhelmed by anything, so you take a big breath in and you go to the count of 4 and you let it out to the count of 6. And I tell you, by doing that, it just helps. And I know you've one more session now, but if you get another break, if the weather wasn't so bad, you could get out for a bit of air. But you know what? What you do is just even take that breath and drop it back down again. And guys, I hope I meet all of you at some stage along the way. And listen, enjoy the rest of your day. So I'm going to leave you because you'll have a couple of minutes now before Padraig is not on, I think, yet. He'll pop on. And listen, best of luck now to everything you do, and hope all goes well. All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hi guys, so yeah, you're more than welcome to take a break should you wish, just for the next few minutes before we have our next session. The next session will be 15 to 20 minutes and then you'll be free then to go for lunch. Is that okay? Perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
Thanks. No problem.